All right, welcome back to the Getting Into Cars podcast, everybody. We are on episode 2, and today we are joined by a guest. It's not just me for an hour again. So today we have on Hibiscus Motorsports, and I will pass it to him to do a little introduction.
Hello, everybody. My name's Cole. I go by Hibiscus Motorsports on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, stuff like that. My personal content is all focused about track days and performance driving, stuff like that. I have got a 1996 Mazda Miata that is fully gutted. It's got a roll bar with hopefully soon getting a cage, a bunch of, suspension mods and aero done to it for the track.
All right, so for those who don't know, Hibiscus Motorsports is my brother. We both kind of got into cars around the same time, but maybe like a little bit of like a year apart.
Yeah.
So kind of a good first guest to come on here, especially because a lot of the stuff we do with our cars is very similar with track racing and kind of grassroots style. But so yeah, basically, as I mentioned in the last podcast, I will be kind of getting some guests on here to go through all aspects of life and cars and what you can do with cars and all the kinds of stuff like that, and kind of picking the brains of people in general of like how they get into cars, or their stances on cars, or kind of like coming up with like what if scenarios with cars too. Some little few fun things. So the first thing we'll start off is my first question, which is, how or what got you into cars?
So, I mean, we used to race dirt oval go-karts when we were kids. Raced those for 13 or 14 years. So those were always a big help to kind of steer me in the direction of being into cars and stuff like that. Growing up in a household, where our father, was into cars when he was younger, stuff like that. I'd be lying if I said that, movies like Fast and Furious and even Disney Cars, stuff like that, made me more into cars. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty much just kind of growing up around that and being fortunate enough to be able to be, in a way to be able to race dirt oval go-karts was definitely a big help as well.
So with kind of being like a similar background of getting into cars and kind of like being around like the mechanical aspects of go-karts and everything, um I don't know about you, but I eventually, like at a very young age, I had like one dream car stick out to me. Or not really dream car, but like the car that kind of got me interested in looking at cars stuck out to me, but I wasn't really into cars until like I got out of high school. So for me, it was the Nissan 350Z, and I think God, that was like, I had been like fifth grade or something like that when that came out, or like fourth grade or something. But that was like my like, every time I saw it on the road, that was like, oh, like I thought it was the coolest thing. It kind of like started my awakening of seeing like cool cars, but I didn't really know anything about them. What car, like seeing it on the road or like in a movie, or in a video game, kind of like kicked that same neuron off in your head?
So the first thing that, from a really young age, that made me really enjoy the aspect of cars, maybe I didn't fully understand it at the time, was getting to go for a ride in a 1969 Mustang Fastback. Like that only ever happened one time, and I still have like, I mean, how old was I by that point? I was probably like 5, 6. No, I was a little bit older, probably like 7 or 8 maybe. I just remember it was just one specific road, looking out the window and just kind of like seeing the trees, and then like looking back inside the car and like kind of realizing like what I was actually in there. I as far as cars on the road, I never really like paid attention to any specific car. It was more just like I would see like a more sporty car, like back then, like obviously like the early 2000s. The few times we'd see like the early 2000s tuner cars around us. Um, like I could tell what was like regular traffic on the road, and then what was actually something that was nicer and like more sporty. I think what kind of really is why I started like realizing different cars was like playing games like Need for Speed. I always liked like seeing the different cars in that game, but I don't know if there was ever like one specific car that ever really like hit it off for me. I think it was really just like seeing, obviously telling what car was supposed to be fast and sporty versus what was just, to take, the family to dinner or something like that.
That's actually really like something I kind of wanted to ask people in general too, because right now in the community that's such like a love hate phrase to say. And so like what in your opinion um does the word like regular or the phrase regular traffic mean? Because like for instance for me, and this may just be because I have ADHD or whatever, but like when I'm driving or if I'm like in a parking lot or something, you can obviously you'll see like cars driving by and stuff, but out of the corner of your eye, like not focused in 2020 vision, even before you hear it, sometimes you just like you see something that looks different, even if it's like the same color as everything else. It just has this like eye-catching aura, basically, like as it's driving by, like the shape of it or whatever that like catches it, and you can tell it's like, okay, that's not like the rest of everything on the road. And then you turn and look and it's something different, like even though they're pretty common, like especially in like the summertime or like the when the weather's nice, even something like a Miata or like like a Porsche Boxster or something like that, even though they're all around, they still give off that like not regular traffic aura and vibe. So it's something that'll like catch my eye all the time. But like for you, if you had to give like a defining meaning to regular traffic, what defines something from regular traffic and something that's like a project car or a sports car or like something that doesn't fall under that category?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of break it down to slightly different categories. So as far as visually, I'm pretty basic with it. Where if if you're like if the car in question looks like everything else on the road and kind of blends in, like for example, if somebody told me, like asked me like, is a 2015 like Honda Civic, like base model, is that regular traffic? I'd say yes, because that just looks like everything else on the road. And as far as and then the other characteristic I have is for the driving, because I know that's a whole big debate in the car community of like you know like, oh, my car feels sporty, so it's not regular traffic. To me, as far as the driving aspect is, if the car is like fun to drive and you can obviously tell the like the suspension and things like that, the way the engine's tuned, things like that are obviously more for a performance standpoint. I would say that it's not regular traffic. Like, I mean, obviously I know everybody loves loves to argue that. So for me personally, if as long as your car isn't like a base model car that's just like a commuter car, I'd say you're probably not regular traffic. But at the same time, to me, that's nothing to brag about. Saying your car is or isn't regular traffic, I don't really care personally. Like, if I go to a car meet and there's a base model 2021 Honda Civic versus like some kind of like supercar or something like that, it doesn't really matter to me. just because I'm more focused on the fact that people are there enjoying their cars rather than caring about debating if their car is regular traffic or not.
Yeah. So that's like, I don't know. There's such a like a stigma, I guess, around that phrase, those words, that it's like people are like, oh well, you can't be in the car community if you have a regular traffic car. But it's like, so there's nothing that defines the phrase regular traffic. A regular traffic could be something that's like you see all the time in traffic. In that case, Dodge Chargers would be regular traffic for me because I see like three or four of them every single day on my way to and from work. It's like, so there's like this like statement that people are putting out into the community to like try to basically have like a star-bellied sneech scenario where it's like, oh well, you guys don't
Yeah.
have this aspect, so you can't be into cars, or your car is invalid, or this and that, blah blah. And it's like, do I think that, taking like a base 2007 Nissan Altima and throwing everything in isolated AutoZone on it, like headlight claws and hood scoops and stuff like that, I don't think that that's the the correct way to go about it. But I can definitely say that I've seen base model or commuter cars that have tastefully been turned into something really nice. Um, like for instance, there's, so take the Altima for example. Like I just said, there's like the everyday four door inline four Altima you normally see, but then you can find, like at least over where I live, there's a two door manual V6 Ultima Coupe, and it looks so much sportier than like anything else I've seen. And they like, every time I see the two door now, it always catches my eye. There's like that body line about it or whatever, but it's like it's the same car. It's just under a different trim package and stuff like that. It's still meant to
Yeah.
be under that grocery getter name, but it clearly has everything people would be looking for a sporty car, or like the Toyota Solara, the non convertible one. It's just like
Mhm.
the your V6 sporty coupe now.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, for me personally, I think saying somebody's car is regular traffic or not, that does nothing but just be negative in the car community space, because exactly like you said, there's no there's no definition. So anytime you have something that doesn't have a true definition and it's up to people's interpretation, everybody's gonna have a different opinion on it. It's like, again, again, exactly what you said. Like, you know, as someone who owns a first generation Miata, I see first generation Miatas in the summer all the time. Like, I will usually see one at least, like, one at least every other day during the nice summer months where people are out cruising. So it's like that car kind of becomes regular traffic. And it's like, and as far as like, the AutoZone special cars that we all, know obviously at car shows, like, I think those like kind of become that way because people weaponize the word regular traffic. And then other people will have what a car that somebody says is regular traffic, like, an Altima, for example, and then they feel like that they need to do everything they can as fast as possible to make that car stand out more and not be regular traffic. And then, in my opinion, absolutely ruin the thing because they put, eBay or like, AutoZone special, cosmetic items in their car, and it just, in my opinion, just kind of looks like crap.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same sentiment with that. Like, I know that it's like everybody has their own whatever they want to do with their own cars and stuff, but just seeing something get ruined because it was rushed or because they want to try to fit in as soon as possible, it just feels so wrong in cars nowadays, especially
Oh
like
yeah.
how, I don't want to say acceptable, but like how overlooked it is for like the term car meet now. Like a car meet used to be this thing that you would find in like the Fast and Furious, where it was all these like, souped up cars or nice cars, or like even if it was like a more commuter based car, they were like all done up and everything, and like there was like some serious pride behind your car, and like now with the term meat, like a car meat nowadays, it's like there's so much to be desired that it's like people will just show up with like a totally stock base model like 2012 Subaru Outback and just post up in front of their car and be like, I know what I got. And it's like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know. It's kind of this like this thing where it's like where do you find, are these people being serious? Is it satire? Are they just, if they're just going to hang out with their friends, that's totally fine. But it's like I can't I don't want to approach some of these people at meets because it's like it's people are so easy to get upset when you talk about something that is theirs. So like if I were to go up to someone and be like, "So, what's what's the vision behind the build here?" Right? Like are they going to immediately jump at my throat, or are they going to be like defensive, or are they going to like break down everything that I don't see, because I mean everything's got some kind of piece of hidden, value to
yeah.
someone. I mean, like, look at the Honda Fit now. It's just starting to get some recognition for being in like an all around car. Like you can track them, you can make them look nice. They can be just nice, fun daily drivers, and it's like I don't know. It's so hard to draw the line now between that kind of stuff because it's like what does or doesn't make a car cool. Like here's a perfect example. There's people who take the. Do you know what the Toyota Previa is?
Yeah, those minivans.
Yeah, people. There's like a whole following of them that people like build aero kits for them, like body kits. Um, they have like all kinds of JDM specialty parts that make them all like built up looking and like cool. And it's like they look good. They look really good. But at the bottom line, it's a minivan. So it's like what what allows someone's vehicle to have that cool factor or to be able to be something that can become cool without like being that future toxicity in the car community.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big, probably one of the main issues, in all honesty, with like modern day car stuff, as far as like meets and things like that go, is like things like social media on it. Like everybody thinks they need to do like the next big thing. So you have a lot of people who end up rushing builds, and it doesn't really come out good because like instead of buying some nice decent quality parts, they get their paycheck, they see it's $1,000, and they hit up eBay and go buy a quote unquote cold air intake. They buy a catback exhaust and a set of coilovers, all for under $1,000. And it's like a lot of people don't want to take the time anymore to build something truly unique like they wanted to, back in like the early 2000s tuner car days, things like that. And then, I mean, as I'll be completely honest, I've been to a lot of local car meets that literally just look like a grocery store parking lot. Because then another thing is, like, everybody, has their own opinions on, like, a build or, like, what's cool and what's not. Like, for me personally, I would say, build whatever you want to build because, do it, like, whatever makes you happy. But at the same time, don't get offended or upset because someone else doesn't like what you did. Because again, like for me, my car is track focused, so it doesn't look all that nice. I've brought it to car shows, and people who are filming like a line of cars will literally stop filming at the car right before mine, skip over mine, and keep filming right after it because they hate what my car looks like. And that's perfectly fine with me because at the end of the day, I know my car is built for a purpose, and I like it. And a little bit of a more controversial opinion for me for the other stuff is, as far as like the JDM cars, and like I mean, because again, like the Previa body kits, do whatever you want. That's personally not my style, but for all the people who like building SUVs and stuff, I do personally think the car community needs to get away from like calling like the JDM quote unquote legend cars. Like at the end of the day, those kinds of cars, like if I showed up to a local car meet with a Gen 4 Supra, no matter no matter if it was fully modified or stock, everybody there would think it was cool. But if I showed up with a stock Honda Fit, nobody would care about it. It's like the
Yeah.
car that you're driving, has a big part to do. And like, to me, I don't really care. In all honesty, like, I hate to see people rush builds because they let other people influence them so much to the point where they rush it and just buy cheap parts and it just comes out like crap. Like, I think anytime if someone wants to do a car build, you know, do some research on it, find out what you want to make it look like or how you want it to perform, and just take your time, man. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's like, you can take months, you can take years to build your car. It's okay. And like, for all the guys who show up with like, the cars that most people would say is regular traffic, as long as you don't show up to a car meet and you're acting like your car is the best thing there because you have a 2020, Volkswagen GTI that's bone stock, it's perfectly fine in my opinion. But if you show up and you're, getting in everybody's face saying how your car is the best car there because whatever, then no, people are just going to take a problem with that.
Yeah, and so like another thing too that I stumbled upon too that like I don't know, like for me, I truly enjoy the idea of having these like car meets and like these things that don't have to be full blown shows because there's so much toxicity in the show culture too. I mean, as we've seen firsthand, whether it's something like a next gen show or like a pony car and classic show, there's always so much like toxicity there that it's like it doesn't feel like a fun atmosphere for me to go to. So like I do honestly prefer to go to a meet or something like that where someone is gonna, you know, like has something really cool, but they may not go to shows, that they only go to meets and kind of like hang out with their friends and stuff. But like another aspect that I've seen too is like I know it's kind of like it's not, but it is at the same time. It's like satire on this one channel, but there's this thing that's called like slow car whatever, and basically they do is they take like these people that go to like meets with like bone stock cars like a 2009 Hyundai Accent versus like a 2010 like I forget what the other one was. It was like a Nissan Sentra or something. And they basically were doing like highway roller racing, and it's like that's not the kind of stuff that like
Oh,
should
I've
be
seen that before.
going on in like the car community stuff.
No.
Like obviously it's very much like go to a track if you're gonna race, but at the same time it's like it feels so desperate almost in my opinion for like to see people like struggling and trying their hardest to fit in with whatever they have. Um because like another thing too, in my opinion, I think it's totally acceptable to go to a car meet with someone or without your own car. You know, you don't have to be the one to show off a car or have to put your car on display if you go to a car meet or a car show or something like that. You know, there's I feel like there's so much pressure and like want for this like fit in thing that it's like it's also putting some kind of like cloud over like the little meat scene and stuff like that. But um yeah, it's just another one of those things that kind of feels like is heading south in the community now. But um one of the other things I was going to ask too, because I know you've been to plenty of them as well as I have, something that our cars typically don't do well in is car shows.
Yep.
I've never properly won a like an award for my car at a show. There's like some smaller meets that give out awards I've gotten some stuff from, but as far as a full blown show, my car always gets overlooked. And actually the last show that I entered it into, um the judges didn't even, they just walked by my car. when it came down to like best tuner or whatever it was. It was between me and a slammed bag WRX, and they just walked by my car. They saw the WRX, checked it off, and that was about it. But
Yeah.
so like for instance, obviously it's clear that like track based racing does not shine at car shows, but at least in my opinion, I think car shows and show cars are still a valid way to be in the community. So like if you had to kind of merge the two, where you could have a car that could be that you could go and take to the track but also like bring to your Sunday car show, wherever it is. What's kind of like a good way you think would be, like, whether it be on the car show end or like getting people to accept racing as something cool to show off?
So there's a saying that's in the car meet is that not every show car can be a race car, but every race car can be a show car.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always going to be the people that, like for example, I'll bring my my Miata. It's obviously that car is long past being a street car or anything like that. It looks like it's you take one look at it, you know what it's meant for. You know that it's not a form based car. It's purely functional. The thing's got dents and scratches all over it. I don't care about that because it's meant to do a job. Um, Unfortunately to me, if you wanted to do track stuff, but and you also wanted to win awards, unfortunately, I think the cars that you'd have to look at is more of like almost like the cars like the community is stereotyped as if you own this car, it's cool, regardless of
Right.
what's done to it. So like things like Gen 4 Supras, any Skyline chassis, I'd say, even like just not doesn't even have to be GTRs, but even like GTTs or GTSTs, anyone from R32 to R34, FDRX7s, newer Porsches, like the snazzier cars like the car community puts on these pedestals, like for example, my car I know will never win an award because everybody views the Mazda Miata as just this basic little slow car, which, by the way, controversial opinion, I don't care what anybody says. My Miata, stock to stock, is faster than your single cam truck engine 240SX. That's a different topic, but I mean, it kind of ties in. This is like the second you say a car, for example, I have a friend, he has a new 2023 or 2022 Mazda 3 hatchback, and he's got the turbo all-wheel drive one. So it's a pretty sporty new car. And as he's getting into cars now, if you tell him a car name, the first thing that he associates with it is, oh, that's a fast car, that's a slow car. And you'll ask him, like, well, have you ever been in one of those cars? No. It's like, okay, then how do you know it's fast or slow? It's because the community says it's like, if you wanted a car that would be on the track but also win shows, I think it's going to be hard to change people's minds by getting like a car fully dedicated for the track that's also not like a legend car effectively, like something like a GTR or stuff like that. I think it's possible to do it without that, but it's just going to be a lot harder just because majority of people at car shows, obviously almost like, not besides like the excessive camber and things like that, almost every modification done for show cars is derived from motorsports. I mean, camber, for example, every race car is going to run negative camber anywhere from like negative, 2 to negative 4 degrees on average. But people like that look, so they take it further. They go to negative 15, negative 20. Wide bodies, didn't start because of looks. They started, for these cars to fit wider wheels and tires for performance. And now, it's some people just, don't like that most race cars are a little rough around the edges. So I think if you really wanted something that could do both, you'd probably have to look at like a car that's reputation exceeds itself and just kind of go from there. But it's not impossible to also impress some people, with a cheaper car that's built for the track.
So now, if you now obviously we've been to a few different types of car shows too. With let's say that you yourself were going to be entering a car like your own show car into a car. Would you rather be at, because the vibe is completely different, but somehow still mostly just as toxic. And I'm not saying that all people who are into show cars are toxic, but there is a very like stuck up kind of feeling at a lot of these shows. Would you rather be entering your car, your show car, whatever it may be, into something like a next gen show where it's just all bagged commuter cars with, like fancy colored wraps, tints, and like fake chandeliers hanging from the ceiling? Or would you rather it be entered into like a pony car show where it's like all the old, it's like most of the same old, muscle cars and stuff like that, where it's um basically whose is the most like clean and stock version of itself?
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a hard one because, like, at the same time, I never see myself doing like one of those VIP style builds, like, where people take Honda Accords, put the chandeliers in them, put them on air rides. So that's just personally not what I'm interested in cars. I would probably be more likely to do like a pony car, just just because like well, yes, every form of show car. I mean, every form of the automotive and the car scene can be toxic because it all depends on the person. Some people are just so opinionated that you know they're the only thing that only their opinions matter, and that's kind of why how I like think that car shows in general and show car, like especially like the ones that give out awards, are usually the stereotype to be very toxic, is because it's all just based on looks. And again, everyone's taste in cars is going to be different. It's like at some huge events, like massive car shows in the US, track inspired builds have won before over what you'd expect to win, which is, these cars that are slammed usually on air with like, crazy wheel to, or fender to lip, fitments and stuff like that. It's like, but personally, I think I would probably be more likely to do a pony car just because, again, I'm all about the function of cars personally. And I know damn well that a car that's got like negative 30 degrees of camber on like
Yeah.
18 by 12 negative 30, wheels definitely does not drive like what you'd want it to drive. That thing probably gets like 5 degrees of steering before it's hitting the fenders. So I'd definitely be more likely to build a pony car first.
I definitely agree with the whole idea too of that, like, even though I do see like a lot of cool builds that are clearly meant just for attention and bringing to shows and boosting social media stuff, I would much rather have a car that I could functionally drive, even though it'll still look nice. So, like, for instance, reaching out into the show car community, and let me preface this by saying before I get, absolutely torn apart, um, no, I don't think that car shows and show car people are toxic, but I think that there's a fine line between competitiveness and toxicity. Because at the end of the day, a car show is a competition, just like a race is, just like, a drifting event and stuff like that. Um, you know, there's competition to be had. So I totally understand, being like competitive and scoping out the competition and stuff. But like, it feels that like in a lot of these shows, it's hard to feel accepted if you don't have exactly what everyone else has. So like for instance, if I bring like the MR2 doesn't really fit into any major car shows because like when we would go to something like the Barnum Festival, it is, even though it's not purely like classics and muscle cars and pony, stuff like that, it's very heavily dominated by that, and you can kind of just tell that nobody's really interested in your car. The other people around you don't really care for you parking near them. You kind of don't feel welcomed, while at the same time at something that's like mainly newer cars and like something like a next gen show, it's around the same thing. You come in with a track focused car, or like a car that's not slammed on bags and stuff, and it's like you're looked at as like a sore thumb. So it's like, is that competitiveness or is it toxicity? But I don't know. That's kind of like a do it your own kind of opinion question. But for instance,
Yeah.
like my LS 400, I would absolutely love to find the bridge between performance and being able to win awards with, like, as a show car, because in my opinion, I think that that motor and that platform is just starting to get tapped into as it's like what it can do. So for a long time, people have either made them into drift cars, or um, like slammed them and made them into VIP builds and stuff. But my controversial opinion on that is, if you're gonna do a VIP build, make sure it's a VIP car. Because I'm telling you right now, if someone orders Uber Black and they're getting it, and they have to get into a back of a base model Honda Civic with a chandelier hanging from the roof, it does not yell VIP or anything
No.
like that. You're supposed to feel executive and important when you get into those cars, and it's like, obviously you can't get that on Uber Black anyways, but that's just like my thing. But I think that, like, for instance, the LS 400 has so much potential to do stuff that like muscle cars can do, as in like the V8 ones, like the Mustangs, the Camaros, stuff like that. Um, it has a potential V8 in it, and I think that there's a lot of things you can do as far as the motor, but kind of finding that thing where it's like you're not just slamming it on the ground and making it look pretty, but like knowing that when you bring it there, you could potentially also be the fastest car at the car show and still win an award while being the cleanest looking car at the car show. And kind of like
Mm.
being able to be functional and still getting that like recognition that, you don't have to be pristine and this mint condition stock car, or slammed and so unusable that like it's just basically an unfunctional sculpture at that point. But yeah, that's another one of the aspects I'd like to cover on this in the future, because it's like there's so it's kind of this weird gray area when people think cars. It's kind of like, I don't know, for at least for me, when I'm on Instagram and stuff, anything car related is either racing, um, or like cars and coffee will pop up every now and then, or it's like some sort of like drifting. And it's like I never see people covering car shows really, or like the competitiveness in car shows, because there are a few accounts that like follow these nationwide car shows and like follow who's like winning in all of them and stuff like that, and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of something I'd like to see take a positive change in the community, where right now we have so much negativity towards any and everything.
Yeah, for me personally, I think the way that I would kind of wrap all that up in one simple sentence is just be unique. Like, don't build your car for anybody else, because exactly what you're saying. Nothing against like the next gen guys, but like their shows are a good example. Once you see the first 3 cars in line, you have seen every car in that building.
Yeah.
They are they're all, whether it be a Honda CRV, a Honda Accord, it be, a Subaru, maybe it's a WRX, like one, they're all done the same way. They all have the same style, chameleon tint, all on air, air. They all have crazy trunk setups for their air and speakers. It's like just like, and some people do genuine like that, but I know that there's people that like because they're into show cars, they know that if they don't build their car that way, they're not going to win any awards. And it's like, to me, I personally think you'd be way happier building your car how you want it to look and not winning as many awards versus building a car that other people like the way it looks and winning more, because you're never really going to feel like truly connected with the build that you're doing on your car. I mean, that's why, for me personally, the racing world is a lot simpler, because none of us really care what our cars look like, because we just only care about how our cars perform, so.
Yeah, I think the whole functionality part of racing adds a lot more simplicity to being able to like get in, not like so much get into racing, but like it's just so much more cut and dry. You go, you perform with your car, and that's it. You there's no judging based off of looks or little minute details that someone else did, art style on their car. It's like whoever goes out there and performs and races how they want to race. It's kind of like this. It's a much more, rather than building a car for other people to look at. It's very much a doing something you want to do and being a little more like selfish in a good way, kind of like that. You know, the one of the good reasons of being into cars, in my opinion, like being able to race your car or like do what you want with your car performance wise. It's just like you feel so much more connected to your actual car. I feel like it builds such a better like experience. You're more likely, in my opinion, to enjoy every time you get into the car or look forward to driving the car and stuff like that. And it kind of builds more than just this, like a person and a machine. And it's kind of like there's like spirit and soul behind your car. And you find other people who feel the same way, and it's like it creates a genuine passion that I think people kind of overlook in the car world, rather than just seeing someone driving a car, or trying to win a race with a car. It's more than that. It's like this thing that kind of is kind of what I would like to get people to experience about why people are so into cars, and it's not just a point A to point B machine. There's genuine things you can do with cars. Like for instance, too, there's a guy who does a program where he takes kids in troubled areas and he shows them how to work on cars, and like stuff like put like upgrading cars with like performance parts and stuff at his garage. And it's kind of like it's one of those things where instead of it being like a help, like just, oh, I can work on my car, it's a helpful thing to kind of help people get into a healthy, or what could be a healthy, what like fixation and way of life, or like hobby, if you want to put it like that too. um but I think that when it comes to like showing people what you can do with cars, especially with racing, or that like cars pretty much can touch on most like school subjects too. There's everything you can do and still be into the world of cars, and it's like it's such a versatile thing that I wish that more people were into healthy manners of it, kind of.
Yeah, it makes sense. I
Yeah,
mean,
there's.
as yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just saying, it's just like the for to me, like I said, just the biggest issue I think that it comes down to really is just people are, as far as like the toxicity, and it's like people are more focused on like hating on what somebody else's car build is versus like they're either too prideful and think that theirs is the best and look down on everybody else, or they just hate on everybody else's, and then you find out that they don't even have a car or something that's like that. It's just like it's as far as that, like the negative part of that world. I think just people need to kind of take a step back and just like not really care about each other's cars. Like if you don't like that person's car, you could say something to your friends, be like, oh yeah, I'm not a fan of that car, or, that car is not for me. But it's just, I don't know. I think that world is just a whole big issue with that. And again, social media definitely does not help that. And you know, because everybody thinks that like if you don't like for your street build, if you're not running $6,000 wheels with $2,000 tires on your street car, then that's not cool. But again, that this is the motorsports side of the car world is a whole different thing. Um, it's I do fully agree. It's a lot more cut and dry. than like show cars or the street side of it. I'm not, by no means am I saying it's better or anything like that. I mean, I still go to local car shows and really enjoy like the street builds that people do, but it's just like racing and track stuff is just like getting to actually see what your car can do. Like for me personally, that's what makes a car for me. Like makes me a car enthusiast is not just like putting a different set of like work 3-piece wheels on my car and saying, oh cool, look at my car because I have expensive parts, that means it's cool. I
Yeah.
like actually being like, oh look, like these new, like for example, these new tires that I get, oh, these, shave my lap times about, 1.5 seconds, stuff like that. So it's like, I prefer the motorsports side of cars just because, the people are more focused on like the performance that rather than like complaining about how your car looks. But it's definitely not to say that there are people like that in the motorsports world who do that, but it's just a little bit less about, like, oh, I don't like your car, and more it's just like, oh, your car, performs or doesn't perform.
Yeah. So now let me ask you this. That's a good segue into this. With social media being such a like great tool, but also horrible like way to spread negative, impacting things. With people who are getting into cars being on social media and having to compete with like people who do like illegal street racing or takeovers or like dumb stuff with their cars that make a bad name for all of people who are into cars, with all of that flaring up on social media and getting promoted by Instagram and stuff like that instead of being removed for violent actions, how would someone who like you who's primarily into grassroots racing try to sway the incoming car enthusiasts or new people to the car scene to choose a healthy way into cars and not do these dangerous things or be swayed by takeovers and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, let's be honest. It's, obviously, when when most people, maybe it's their first project car, maybe it's their 100th project car, you know, most people, regardless of what the car is being built for, like to obviously drive their car in a more spirited way. So, yeah, like, there's a lot of people who, do illegal, like drag racing, or they do, like, as people like to call them, the toge runs, which, that stuff is obviously still very illegal and very dangerous on public roads. Just because it's nighttime and you checked out the road doesn't mean it's not dangerous. I would I would strongly urge those people, even if they don't participate, but just go to a local track event. Like, for example, when I first got my Miata, before for the first like year of me owning it, it was not going to be a track car. I didn't want to do track stuff. Uh, I was actually almost looking at drifting more when I first started like looking in a performance direction for the car. And then I went to a track day and I didn't even participate in it. I watched one of my friends do it and I thought it was cool, so I signed up for one. And after that, I just got hooked in it. And and like coming from a background of, racing dirt go-karts, like that, like I've always liked racing, but like, I would definitely recommend, anybody who is into like the effectively racing, just not at a track, just at least go, maybe with a friend or go spectate at an event, and then if you really like it, I strongly encourage you to try to sign up, look at organizations like the SCCA, NASA, SCDA, around where we are, there's EMRA, which is another good one, Mass Tuning, like, look at those groups and sign up for an event through them, because I can promise you this, when if you're going for a very spirited drive, or let's say, you're doing what a toge run on back roads, and you're going very fast, driving fast on a track and driving fast on a public road are two way different worlds. You're going to get to go way faster on the racetrack and in a safe, enclosed environment. You've got no chance of getting a speeding ticket or getting arrested, anything like that. It's a much safer environment for not only you, but everyone else around you. Because, even when people say that, like, you know oh, the road's clear, oh, we're in a an open area, there's nothing around. It's like, you could still very easily hurt someone else. And as far as the takeover stuff goes, that's just people who have nothing better to do than just cause problems. Because you know if if you want to drive your car in a performance application, you know, save up some money to be able to do a track day. Like, I fully understand, track days can be expensive, but you're going to enjoy it so much more doing it in a legitimate way at a track than you would, racing one of your buddies on a back road and you lose control of your car and smash into a tree going 80 miles an hour. Like, it's you remove like a lot of the safety hazards, because also racetracks don't have potholes, for example, and for around where we live, that's a huge problem, is potholes. So it's just
I yeah.
I would strongly encourage anyone who does that kinds of stuff to go just check out, even if you watch your a race at your local track, just go check it out, because you know I'd be lying if if before my Miata was built for track stuff, if I didn't like, driving spirited on public roads and stuff like that. But once I started doing track stuff, I stopped doing that because I realized, that stuff can be very dangerous. It's not a safe way to, express the fact that you drive cool. Like, personally, if you told me that, you like going like 120 miles an hour on back roads, I wouldn't think that that's cool, personally. I would have a serious problem with that. Just because, again, there's outlets to be able to do that in a safe and secure way rather than endangering people.
I definitely agree too, because there's so much, like, it's so easy to be swayed now, especially the fact that Instagram promotes a lot of this activity that
Yep.
shouldn't be on the road and stuff like that. Um, but this is like, this podcast itself is kind of my outlet for that, and my hopes that this and my YouTube channel will kind of help sway the incoming people to the car scene to a healthier course of actions. And same thing with like Instagram, showing that you can still, even if it's not just about like racing my car on track and stuff like that, and it's just like fun little trends or whatever, or just like interacting with other people in the community, I think that the trying to be a positive figure in the social media aspect of cars is going to be truly what actually kind of lets it be that people can still be into cars in a safe way in the future, instead of, all this crap happening now. Like, there's, especially with the new like cyber vehicles and everything, like the Cybertruck and like the Tesla Plaid and everything, and there's so much, like, so many people doing all this illegal stuff with them, like drag racing on the highways with no hands and stuff like that, or people doing dumb stuff with the Cybertrucks because they can. It's like, there's those things get promoted because they're tech and they get views, so Instagram makes a ton of benefit off of those. But it genuinely hurts the car community, not just electric cars, but just like in general. There's, when those things get promoted, it hurts the community, and it really, it kind of sucks to see when people, like, you can tell people are kind of like swayed, like they could be swayed to go either way, because like they're into watching like professional versions of motorsports, but they're also like following people who do like illegal stuff like that. And it's like, like, what's the fine line in the balance between getting away from that, like, bad behavior, and showing the benefits of that, like doing that kind of stuff but in a legal and safe way? Because it's not really covered by the news anymore or anything like that, but like takeovers, they people die at takeovers. There's tons and tons of damage, and like thousands and millions of dollars in property damage with that, vandalizing, destroying other people's cars who weren't even part of the takeover. It's like, it's kind of that thing where it's such a hard like place to find the tipping point to be able to tell people like you don't have to go to these, you don't have to do this, you can go and do this in a safe way and still have it be as fun, if not more fun. And that's kind of like what one of the things on here I'm gonna kind of push to is the people who I'm gonna have on the podcast, whoever, how they got into cars and stuff, and see how what their opinion is on how to change the outlook of the community right now and how to sway people to have better habits and be into better, healthier like versions of the car community.
Yeah. I mean, as like I said, just for for anyone who is, interested in potentially doing like street racing or stuff like that, just again, just even like DM, like a grassroots race or something like that on, like Instagram or stuff like that, cuz or just again, go to your local track and just watch it, cuz it's like, that that's a huge way that, like I know a lot of places have begun to try to get rid of the the illegal, street racing stuff like that. And social media is, like, I know I've personally reported a ton of accounts that's literally just people at takeovers and sideshows and stuff like that, and just Instagram and different social medias never do anything about it, because in the video it's just people drifting around in a circle, and the bot that's in charge of the reports and all that doesn't actually know what it's watching, so it doesn't, it won't do anything about it. But it's like, that then, when you go to the comments in those videos, it's all just hundreds of people saying that that's so sick, and like they can't wait to go, to go to one that's happening near them or something. It's like it's a very bad and toxic way, because people just don't know where else to go. And I mean, with so many tracks getting shut down, it's not helping either. But what people need to remember too is, like, when this stuff happens, like this will impact the entire car community, whether it be just the street side or even the motorsports. I mean, like, there's talks about laws and stuff being passed to ban the ability to take a street production vehicle and turn it into a race car. So the only way you'd be able to get a race car is just a purpose-built car coming from a factory like that. And, like, that that would punish people like me and, thousands of other people who like doing track days and, getting our need for speed, in a sense, out in a healthy and safe way, because then we got punished because somebody else did something stupid. It's just like, just check out your local tracks. There's tracks all over the country. I know there's areas that don't have some, but, like, be okay with driving a couple hours to get to tracks. I promise you're gonna like it so much more than any kind of, like, back roads runs, or or street racing takeovers, anything like that. It's a much healthier and safer way to showcase what you can do with your car and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that the whole aspect of exactly like you said, getting into some kind of safer way of doing it is going to be hopefully key. Like, I know that because you're mainly like the grassroots racing style, and but like other guests in here too who are into different aspects of cars, I would love to see how they also answer the question too, and kind of, like someone who's into show cars or car meets or street cars, or like, just like building your car to look cool or something like that, because there's so many different aspects, even like we were talking about drifting, show cars, like rally, all that kind of stuff, who genuinely still all love cars and would hate, absolutely hate to see them get banned and restricted because of stupid stuff people does or do. Because it's not the people who race on track that are going to get track cars banned. It's the people who are doing dumb stuff in the street that are going to get track cars banned. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that going forward is going to kind of be like the mission of this and like other social medias and stuff, to try to promote this in like a healthy way and kind of use it as like an educational tool. Um, but the yeah, that's going to kind of be the mission going forward. But so we just hit the hour mark here, so I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping it up. So this has been the Hibiscus Motorsports episode with the Miata man himself. I'm not claiming that as your nickname, by the way. So
That's fine.
I'm gonna
I
give
get
the
some of them.
I'm gonna give the floor to you to promote whatever you want to promote, whether it be social medias or anything like that, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you for having me on. For anyone interested, you can find me on, you know, all social media platforms at Hibiscus Motorsports. I'm not crazy active on social media, but I do definitely post every now and then, just different stuff because I've got a huge thing going on, a huge project going on the sidelines right now for the Miata, so that's fun. I can't give too many details on that just yet until I'm ready to fully reveal it, but it's not crazy unique anyway. Everybody's seen it on social media anyway. Um, but no, I mean, overall, for anyone interested, in, HPD events, track days, stuff like that, I highly, recommend, you guys go check it out, stuff like that. It's a great way to, be in the car community and, do what, in my opinion, what cars were meant to do, and that's drive. So, just definitely go check them out. Go check out, your local track days, and yeah, and just overall, just stay positive in the car community.
All right, that's a good note to end it on. So everybody, thank you for listening again to the second episode of Getting Into Cars. We have a big list of people lined up who want to actually be guests, which is way more than I thought I was going to get with this. So over the next couple weeks and months, depending on how fast I can record them and get them out, and work with people's schedules, we're gonna try to get more. We have a list of guests we're gonna put on here, and yeah, so look out for more episodes going forward. They're going to be on Spotify and YouTube, and then there's going to be clips of them on my Instagram at Sliding and Driving. So with that, thank you, and we will see you guys next time.